common sense. But I'm always impressed. I'm always impressed when I talk to an economist. Within 2 seconds, I don't know what the hell they're talking about because they have all of these concepts and terms and, it doesn't make sense to me. So I thought maybe I should learn some of the words at least so I can throw them around. Everybody would be just as impressed with me. So, because I was a professor at UBC, I could take it out of the course for nothing, so I signed up for Economics 101. And I was kind of excited the first day of class. And as I was getting up to go, my wife said to me, Suzuki, how about for a change? Don't say anything for the whole class. Just keep your mouth shut. So I said, okay, I promise. I won't say anything. I get to the class. Halfway through the first lecture, the professor said, now here's a diagram of the economy. And it was impressive. What do you expect? Arrows going back and forth, raw materials and extraction, process, manufacture, wholesale, all that stuff. The idea is if you can identify all of the components of an economy, then you can tweak it with a disincentive here or an incentive there, and you can keep the economy going. And I swore to my wife, I couldn't help it, the hand went up, I tried to control it. I said, excuse me, sir, but when you look at that diagram, could you tell me, where do you put the ozone layer? Where do you put the underground aquifers of fossil water? Where do you put topsoil and biodiversity? And his answer just blew me out of that room. He said, oh, those are externalities. I know what externality means, but I didn't realize it was a scientific term in economics. It means they're not in the equation. They're not in the system. So then I said, well, what planet is this for? We have a fundamental problem that the economics thinks the best thing to hit the planet was us. We're so smart and creative, and there's no limit to human imagination, so the economy is fed by human ingenuity, creativity, and can grow forever. Now, nature's performing all kinds of things that we take advantage of, what we call natural services, or ecosystem services. Nature, and the reason why we're so horrified by the bee disappearance is that nature pollinates flowering plants. If we lose all of the vectors that pollinate flowering plants, believe me, we are in deep, deep trouble. Nature does it for nothing. Nature filters water. Nature enters into the carbon cycle, into the nitrogen cycle. Nature's performing literally dozens of services. And these are considered externalities. And where it came through to me very strongly was many years ago when I was fighting with the Millewatt people to stop any logging coming into their sacred valley, the Stein Valley. And I joined the battle over the Stein. I was up camping in the Stein Valley, and the CEO of Fletcher Challenge, which had been given the license to log that valley, happened to be up there. He was helicoptered in. And I ran into him. Well, you can imagine, we got into a rather animated discussion. And finally, he was so fed up with me, he said, listen, Suzuki, are tree huggers like you willing to pay so that I don't cut that tree down? Because unless you're willing to pay for it, that tree has no value until the logger puts a saw to it. And I went, oh my God, he's absolutely right. That tree, as long as it's standing, is taking carbon dioxide out of the air, putting oxygen back in it. Not a bad service, that's an externality. That tree is holding the soil so it doesn't run into the spawning beds of salmon. It prevents erosion when it rains. That's an externality. The tree pumps hundreds of gallons of water out of the soil into the atmosphere through transpiration and affects weather and climate. That's an externality. That tree provides habitat for fungi and bacteria and insects and mammals and birds. That's an externality. So when we look at that tree, its only value is when someone's willing to pay money to stop logging it or a logger comes. And he was absolutely right. That's what our system is. So that tree's services are not included in this economic system. So this is a fundamentally flawed system, it seems to me. We regard, right now we pay $90 a ton to put garbage into our landfill. We're not willing to pay 1 cent to dump garbage into the atmosphere. That's kind of weird. It's an externality. So to compound the problem, we let economists define terms that we will then use to determine how well we're doing. It used to be GNP, now it's the GDP, the gross domestic product, in each exchange of currency for goods and services adds to the GDP. But you know, the crazy thing is economists only add. They don't know how to subtract. Doesn't matter why you're paying money. As long as money changes hands, that's added to the GDP. So, you know, you start thinking about this. Wait a minute, now is that what we want to do? I mean, consider this. We have this crazy situation where we have the largest nuclear plant, Darlington, next to the largest city in Canada, Toronto. Now they tell us, no, don't worry, we're not like the Russians or the Americans. We've got the Canada system that's foolproof. Don't worry. Well, you know what a foolproof system is, right? It's a system free of fools. Right? And who among us has never been a fool? I mean, every one of us, we've fallen in love and lost 50 IQ points. You go to a party, you get hammered, and come in the next day drunk, you don't want to miss your wages, you come in with the flu. All kinds of things make us act like a fool at some point. There is no such thing as a foolproof technology unless you get rid of the fools, as Hal did in 2001 in the rocket. So there is no such thing as a foolproof technology. So imagine that the unthinkable happens, that Darlington vents a huge cloud of radioactive gas that floats over Toronto, and thousands of people develop radiation sickness. Well, guess what? Economists are delighted. You need hospitals, nurses, medicines, and no doubt a hell of a lot of lawyers. All of that adds to the GDP. And if dozens of people begin to die of radiation sickness, hallelujah! You need undertakers, you need coffins, you need flowers and grave diggers, and all of that adds to the GDP. And then, if you say to Darlington, you've got to clean up your mess, and it's going to cost billions of dollars. Guess what? That adds all to the GDP. So as far as economists are concerned, if you use GDP as a measure, that accident, which is a social, economic, and environmental disaster, is, hallelujah, it's raised the GDP in this area by billions of dollars.